So rebirthing breathwork is synonymous with birth because in the early days they were breathing in hot tubs, and this induced the birth experience in most of the rebirthers at that time. So I had a really difficult time when I was having my first few sessions. I really, and this was dry, what we call dry rebirthing. I really struggled to breathe. And I do this, like, I call it chicken breathing. As I was breathing, I was trying to get the breath, and it was so hard. And I was really struggling. And I often see it in clients too. So I was actually a late birth, but premature because my mother's placenta, for the most part, stopped working at 8 months. And I was in there for 2 weeks with very little coming to me. So obviously getting oxygen through because I survived it and came through. The doctors were getting very worried, and they said to my mum, look, I think we better give you a cesarean. And I must have been like, bugger that. No way. I'm not going to be a cesarean, baby. And my mum went to the toilet. There must have been like a click in her pelvis because at around 7 months, she fell quite badly on her back. And somehow I must have been wedged in there. And I started coming out. And so she waddled down the hall, and within 4 minutes, I was out. So I was late in a sense, and then I was fast. And that exemplifies my life. Like, I will take time to make sure it's safe before I make a decision. And then once I've made a decision, bam, I'm into it. I really get going. And so what we do in rebirthing is we look at all these different birth types and how we've constructed our lives, because our birth does set up our life.
From interviewing my mother and my father before they passed and some aunts and uncles who were present, I got a pretty full picture. I was wanted and I was wanted as a girl because there was confusion about that. I thought that they wanted a boy, but my father had 2 sons and I was my mom's first child, and I was very wanted as a girl. Now, what confirmed this is recently, this is in the last 2 years, I was told by my aunt they never even chose a name for a boy. They were so certain and so wanting a girl. So that was like, because I've been breathing for a lot of years and working on my personal lie, which is I'm not good enough. So when I was born, I was a fast birth, 4.5 hours from start to finish. My mom was inexperienced, so she thought she had to go to the bathroom. And my dad looked at her and said no, and wrapped her up in a fur coat. This is in Michigan in the wintertime. I got to the hospital and my mom couldn't sit down, and the nurse is telling her to sit down in a wheelchair. She goes, I can't sit down. My head was, I was already on the way out, just like you just described. And so my mom was getting mad at the nurse. The nurse is pushing her, and she's inexperienced. She hasn't had a child before, so she doesn't know how to put her foot down with them yet. They gave her a spine. So to say that I love drugs and alcohol is an understatement, because right when I'm most alive, right when I get to the top of Everest, that's when I want the bottle of tequila. I had a lot of tetany for a lot of years. A lot of tetany as I was processing out anesthetic. Through breathwork, continued breathwork, and it wasn't overnight. It took many years. I breathed out the need for drugs and alcohol, and I made my way to India and started the deeper work, and I continue today. Recently, in this last trip to Crestone, we really examined the cord around the neck, and and I've never had past life before, but I remember fear thoughts I have about being choked. Every once in a while, I'll have that thought when I'm someplace, but it's taken me years to understand that those are past life thoughts and that I have had.
Exactly, and it's for now resolving it. in
Yeah.
this life,
Oh, yeah. All the
having manifested the cord, let us resolving it.
but I'm really grateful for the what breathwork. Breathwork has
Ah.
transformed my life.
Just being frozen and stuck, and like I couldn't move forward, I couldn't move back. It just felt like I was in this place of pure stuckness. And what I realized is that this actually correlated with my birth, my head being stuck. I couldn't quite get out of my mother, and I don't think I wanted to leave her, really. And again, when I started to connect the dots, which is what happens with rebirthing, I started to see how most of my life, when things happened that were overwhelming for me, I would go into this place of frozenness. But my head was too big to come out. And what happened was I stretched my mother so much that she needed stitches. And what I correlated from this birth and a belief that was created, imprinted on me, was that I hurt others with my presence, which is, it's profound, but actually I realized that this was something that I have been carrying so much. Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I need to make myself smaller to make others feel comfortable? And this could manifest in lots of different ways, even to the point of, and I don't know if this is a very English thing, but if someone would bump into me in the street, I would apologize for them because I'd taken up too much space. So it's so interesting to see where this, where these patterns are created. I realized from going back into my birth with rebirthing was that I procrastinate a lot. And I start something and then just kind of not finish it or give up because I feel like I can't do it. And this is something I could hear a lot in the rebirthing sessions, is this pattern. I can't do this. I can't be born. I realized that through rebirthing and going into the sessions of getting back into the birth and feeling that frozenness, this procrastination, this like feeling like I can't quite come into the world. I can't quite be born. And it felt like this with things in my life. I'd kind of start them but not be able to birth them. I got into the breath release quite early on, actually, in my sessions. And how it manifested for me was I got to a point where my breathing was becoming very chaotic, as if I was struggling for my life, and like I couldn't get air, and just hanging on, trying to breathe. And I surrendered into that, and what happened was my breath just got released, and it felt like I could breathe easily, like the inhale and the exhale were just merging as one. And this struggle, which was mirrored in many panic attacks that I'd previously experienced, there was this real sense of panic and just struggle for life, trying to just breathe to stay alive.
When we're in a warm rebirthing session, because the water is around body temperature, people tend to go to womb experiences. Have you had any of those experiences in warm water sessions, Kim?
Yes, actually the first warm water session I had, I went back into the womb space, and I was lying on my side in a fetal position in the water, breathing with a snorkel, and it just felt like such a safe, natural, comfortable position to be in this warm water. And I did go back into the womb, and I had this sense that I could hear and feel my mother's heartbeat, and it was really, really loud.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that my heartbeat was kind of in sync with her heartbeat. And there was also this sense that my grandmother was there as well, around with her. So there was this like 3 generations all together. And I really didn't want to get out of the water, actually. And I just felt like it was my safe space. That's what this process has been for me. It really is like a rebirth, and it's so empowering, because I started off kind of like, you know, in the cocoon, trying to poke out, you know, that caterpillar's trying to come out, can't quite do it. And as I've breathed through so many sessions, so many resistances have come up. And the way that I would describe them is, and I haven't given birth in this lifetime, but what it's felt like and been shown to me is like contractions. Oh, you know, that breathing. Can I breathe through it? Can I breathe through it? And as I'm peeling away like an onion after these sessions, it's like I'm giving birth to myself, the real me, which is underneath all of these patterns, the programs, the experiences. And I was even shown in a session towards the ending, this beautiful image of me giving birth to myself. And I could kind of see this, all parts of it, like 360-degree angle of it. And then I was giving birth to myself, and then I handed the baby, which was the new me, the reborn Kimberly.
Yeah.
And I held her in my arms.
Wow.
And, you know, obviously this is just symbolic, but that's what rebirthing feels like. It's a rebirth. My mum told me I was born 3 weeks early. And the night that I was born was actually in October, and there was a storm. And apparently my dad said to my mum, yep, this is the night she's coming. And it was the night when I think he had the most work on, and he'd been working really, really hard, and he was absolutely knackered. And he just knew that was when I was coming. The Scorpio was about to be born. Paving the way. And so the fact, I guess, that I was born 3 weeks early, there would have been this urge to want to be born, you know, to come into the world in some sense, to be ready to incarnate. But what I experienced from going into sessions, like I mentioned before, was there was this kind of this stuckness of, you know, my head was stuck in the birth canal. And it's correlated really well for me when I look at things in my life, like projects that I've tried to start, or things or ideas that I've tried to bring into birth. I kind of would get really excited and enthusiastic, and then suddenly go into this kind of freeze mode and shut down and, you know, give up sometimes. So it's really interesting to see how that kind of plays out with my birth, and how it all kind of pieces together.
There's 2 different things. They have to do with affirmations too, like, which comes from the rebirthing process, right? You rebirthing, processing your mind and stuff. First one is looking at your birth and making that connection between me being a forceps and getting stuck in the birth canal and having to be helped out, and how angry that made me, right? And I wanted to do it myself, all that other stuff. And then making that connection between instances in my life where I'm getting stuck, people are helping, and I'm getting angry. And then to make the transformation, to realize that the first time I feel that stuck energy, I can make the choice to ask for help. And then it's taking my power back, really, to say, okay, all right, I'm a little stuck here now. I need some help. And then looking for that help instead of waiting for it to come against my will. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm looking,
absolutely.
I'm now looking for it to come in the ways that I want it to come. Right? I welcome the support. And that had been a thing for me my whole life. I did not want support. I didn't want anybody's help. They weren't going to help me the way I wanted to be helped. And they were just going to butt in and they weren't doing it the right way. And when I made that connection, I relaxed into support.
Wow, brilliant.
Right? I looked
Right,
for it. I
everyone,
relaxed into
hear
it.
that again.
Yeah. I
Hear that again.
relaxed into the support. So
you
yeah.
were able to choose. You were able to choose it, but it was safe to choose.
Yes, I was able to make that choice and to take the power back and not be a victim anymore. And I think I will have to say across the board, that's one of the things that has helped me the most with rebirthing and being a breath worker and helping other people is to realize I am not a victim of anything in any way, shape, or form. That I have the choice, that I created whatever is going on so that I could learn a certain lesson.
So that's what I really want to hear. That what you've just said is freaking awesome about forceps, and I want to put that in a birth video.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But now what you're saying about making choices, and that is really important. Is there any instances, like even with relationships or I don't know, about making
here's one that I really loved, and it was the most profound experience for me early on. I never felt like my dad supported me, right? And I kind of made a generalization: men aren't really there for me. They don't really. And so one of my first rebirthers had me do this affirmation: men love to support me. Very simple, very, I wrote it. It was at that time I was writing it. I wrote it like 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night. And I want to tell you, and I wrote the response column, right? So you're like, men love to support me. Bullshit. Oh, nobody wants to support me. Like all that stuff. And I kind of processed it and purged it out of me so that by the time a week was up, I was kind of like, okay, I could see this. I can see how that could happen. And then I would walk into a meeting and the guys would come up and they would be like, oh, Tracy, I love your smile today. You look like you're in such a good mood. Or I would walk into a hardware store to look for something and a guy would come around the corner and he'd be like, is there anything I can do to help you? And I was so floored because none of that had ever been my experience before. And I know that it was a direct result of doing that affirmation.
Fantastic. And did that ever come up in a session as well?
I don't know if it
would it obviously came first realization about your dad, and you felt
yes, that came up, and that what came up in the session I'm not totally clear about, but that's what had her create the affirmation for me. So that's what I think happened. That's why I love rebirthing. I mean,
and this is the important thing about it's not just breath mastery, it's mind mastery.
Yes, that's a huge part of it. And then, like, I just want to say too, the freedom that comes with not feeling like a victim anymore, right? The freedom that comes with when something gets uncomfortable or something makes me mad or angry or scared. After that, like, initial reaction of that, I can go, all right, why am I creating this? What's going on? What am I afraid of? What am I judging? What am I intolerant about? Like whatever I'm feeling, I look for the ways maybe that I'm projecting it, right? And then feeling it back. And the answers come pretty quickly now because of the breath work, because of the constant, breath work. The answers come pretty quickly. And the feeling, I feel the feeling, but I let it go. I move through it. I don't try and block it. I don't try and push it away. I don't try and deny it.
Yeah.
And that's been a tremendous tool for me for the last 40 years that I've been doing this.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I was at a Course in Miracles weekend training. One of the local Albany people was rebirthing me in the ocean, but not really floating. It was like, really at the edge and just being covered by the water. And she flipped me over at the wrong time, and I started to drown. I started to suck in water. So I was coughing, and I opened my eyes, and here I was expelling liquid from my lungs and throat, and there was a bright light from the sun directly in my eyes, and a bunch of people, a half a dozen people had come around. So I saw just a bunch of heads surrounding this bright light, and I experienced my birth. There was my birth team. There was the bright light shining down on me, and I had just come out and expelled a lungful or two, and that was I was at first I was pissed as hell because she almost drowned me, but then I said, wow, just the thought of experiencing my birth and being able to tie use it later on to use as a reference point, and what is capable, what we can do with this work.